Here's your daily updates. Newsman Dennis Daily offers his take on the events of the day in another daily video blog.
Hi, and thanks again, everybody. You know, it's been really disturbing to look at all the horrible tornadoes and straight-line winds and hailstorms and flooding. All of that weather that's been going on in the Midwest and Mid-South. Now, I'm from southern Indiana, which is not exactly in Tornado Alley, but there have been a lot of tornadoes there, and so I have been watching the news rather carefully. We have on the line my forecaster friend Carrie Dean, who's in southern Indiana, and Carrie is about 15 miles from my hometown, which is on the edge of radar back there, and that's always been a concern. Carrie, aren't there a lot of cities in the U.S. that are just not served very well by existing weather radar?
Well, we do actually have unprotected areas, or at least under here in the United States. There's a main radar in Indianapolis, and there's one out of Paducah, Kentucky, which represents southwest Indiana. Those two do overlap in an area across southwest Indiana. However, at the point where they overlap, the elevation is quite high, and a lot of weather, particularly hook echoes, take place in the bottom or lower couple of thousand feet of the atmosphere. Of course, with tornadoes, they're right there at ground level, so the radar will shoot off the top. Fortunately, tornadoes generally do extend well up into the atmosphere, and you don't see a tornado that fully exists just in the bottom 1,000 feet. So it does leave a signature, but it leaves a poor signature.
Carrie, that big section of southern Indiana that's almost too far from Indianapolis one direction and too far from Paducah the other was well served by the old Weather Service office in Evansville in southern Indiana. I guess there was probably a lot of resistance, citizen resistance, when they announced that that Weather Bureau was going to close.
Oh, there was a huge uproar. The Senate was involved. They had hearings in Evansville. Actually, most of what it was over was the fact that the National Weather Service would be packing up and leaving Evansville and moving to Paducah, Kentucky. Then southern Indiana would be covered by only Indianapolis, which is 2 or 3 hours away. Paducah, Kentucky being the other direction about the same, so it just did not seem like there was any hometown weather service across southern Indiana.
Carrie, I was going to suggest that with a lack of government radar covering some areas, that maybe the local TV stations could fill in the gap, because many of them have radar, but I remember you telling me one time that not all the local TV people know how to use that Doppler radar to its fullest.
They do have good radar so far as picking up the returns coming back from the storms themselves. They rarely, or rarely do I see them, use the full Doppler effect where you can see the actual rotation within the cloud. That takes a very trained weather meteorologist, or at least a weather technician, to be able to see those winds at different altitudes running in different directions. So that's more important than having bright lights on the screen. Being able to interpret the colors or just the small inconsistencies that you might have within a tornado wind area.
Carrie Dean, thanks a lot. That area back in southern Indiana where I did live, and Carrie still does, is of course dear to my heart, and I hate to see it so far from the government radars, and there have been tornadoes there before. I'm Dennis Daily with your Daily News Update.